I was 12 and out trick-or-treating with my best friend who was also 12. Back in those days, it was not unusual for older children, including females, to be unescorted by adults. We lived in an older area, now a suburb of a major city, suitably dressed in costumes and, as usual, running along excited. We were several blocks away from either of our homes. We didn't know anyone on this particular block, but the houses were mostly well lit with front porch lights, and many had carved pumpkins on the steps or near the door, one of the main signs that the household was giving out candy. I remember where this particular house was, on 4th Street, about midway on the south side of the block. In this area were some houses of the kind built by earlier settlers before city codes, often somewhat odd, with different parts added later on. Anyway, we get to this one house, and it has a walkway to the right of the house. This leads to a few steps up to a door, but the door is wide open. My friend and I pause on the steps, a bit uncertain. Of course, we had been warned not to go inside any houses, but this is what, an extra long porch? We see a long empty hallway that appears to be built along the side of the house. It's odd, but the hallway or porch, if it was, is very well lit, and at the end of it was another door, beside which are 2 carved pumpkins. This is obviously the trick-or-treat door, so after a brief hesitation, we forged ahead. We knocked on this second door, and a woman, maybe in her 30s, ordinary looking and not too friendly, opened it, gave us some candy, and then shut the door. We had turned around and were halfway back down the long hallway, when suddenly, out stepped a man who had been hiding behind the open first door. He shut the door and stood in the front of the closed door, blocking our exit. My friend and I froze in our tracks. The man, probably also in his 30s, medium-sized and average-looking, stood for a few seconds not saying anything, but seeming to enjoy the effect he was having. Namely, having scared us speechless. Well, it was Halloween. A scare and then a laugh maybe might be okay, even expected. Perhaps from someone's goofy dad or uncle pranking it up. There are lots of haunted house setups after all. But this guy just stood there, blocking the door and not saying anything, and staring at us with a smug, creepy smile. Finally he said,
"Don't you know you're not supposed to walk into strangers' houses?"
But he still didn't move away from the door. We continued to stand there, frozen, not saying anything. After some more freaky silence, he said,
"So, what are you gonna do now?"
I knew the way he was looking at us was more than a scary prank. It was creepy and weird. I don't know what my friend was thinking, but I was thinking if he doesn't open that door very soon, I'm gonna run back and pound really hard on the second door until that woman answers it. This happened maybe for only a couple of minutes, the creeper gloating and leering at us while blocking the door, but it seemed much longer. Finally he stepped over, grabbed the handle, and disappeared behind the back of the now open door. We bolted out of there like a pair of jackrabbits. My friend and I looked at each other as we ran away, but we continued on our trick-or-treat mission down the street. We never discussed how weird it was later, and we never told our parents.